Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
Some of you will be watching just before New Year. A lot of you will.
Then we are giving you a pre-New Year Happy New Year.
Yeah, but then there's a bunch of you that'll be post-New Year, and it'll be 2025.
Woo!
Year
I feel
in
like
the future.
25 is going to be a good year.
Or maybe it won't. Could be crap.
You know what? I feel like for me, it's going to be a good year. And you know why? It's not even because I think everything's going to work out. It's because I've grown a lot of resilience. And I'm handling life better.
Much different than you did before.
Yeah, I really am.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you can change your outlook on how on life and how you approach it, same crappy stuff could happen in 2025. That
And you can feel totally different about it.
Totally different.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why we made Reclaiming You.
Hey.
That you can start your year off, retrain your brain so that you can love your life no matter what's happening in it.
And build emotional resilience.
That's the tagline.
That is a
Heal
tagline.
your nervous system and build emotional resilience.
It's really good. So if you guys haven't looked into that yet, we've talked about a lot. Got to do it now. It's happening. It's coming up January 11th, 2025.
We always let people sign up a few days after, though. If you've heard this after and you still really want in, you have to really want it, though.
Yeah. Really want it. Okay. So today we're talking about something that everyone engages in the new year.
Oh.
And this isn't your classic New Year's episode.
No.
No. But we are talking about transformation.
Oh, should we point out this new toy that we got as a part of what we're talking about?
Well, first off, don't refer to these as toys. These are action figure collectibles for adults.
Obviously.
And
everybody else obviously knows that.
Yeah. Yeah. But you want to point out yours?
Yeah. We brought in what do you call
Phoenix?
it? The Phoenix.
Yeah, it's not what I call her.
Formerly known as Jean Grey.
It's what Marvel calls her. She is part of the lore for a long time.
That's not what I call her. Yeah. No, I love Jean Grey. I asked if you'd bring her here. I've decided she's my spirit animal for this year. Do you want to explain the story of Jean Grey?
I mean, I would butcher it and Marvel fans will be angry at me when I tell it. But basically, Jean Grey is a very powerful
telepathic
mutant.
And
she eventually has this encounter, and I can't explain all of it because it's a big story. But then she becomes what they call the Phoenix, which is a very super powerful mutant, right?
But the Phoenix means up from the ashes.
Correct. And I don't know why I have to tell her story for you to be able to tell people about what a Phoenix is.
Well, I guess I really wanted you to tell people what the Phoenix was. And if you don't know Jean Grey, you could also think of Harry Potter. It's in Harry Potter too, the Phoenix bird.
Phoenix rise from the ashes.
Yep. Yeah. And I feel like this is, I've talked a lot about this on our podcast, but for 8 years ago, my whole life broke apart. I went through about 20, 25 traumatic things back to back to back. And it broke me from, it broke my body. It broke my mind. It broke my heart. It broke my spirit. I felt like a mess on the floor. I felt like a heap of ashes just lying there, and did not believe I would ever have my rising. Like sometimes you get so ground into the dirt and the dust and the mire muck that you can't even fathom that there's a day that you're going to feel like you're having your comeback.
Yeah.
But
you're the comeback kid, aren't you? That's what you're going to tell them.
Comeback. Oh, that's not what I was going to say, but yes.
Yeah.
No, but it is true. There is life after death. There is life when things end. There is hope for a new future, and there is hope for evolution. Like transformation is one of the most beautiful human qualities that we have.
Yeah, just ask Optimus Prime. As a robot, he knows. It's a beautiful human quality. I don't know what I'm doing.
You just wanted your character to get some attention too.
I just want to talk. Transformation is a beautiful human quality, though, because it's like there. You see, I'm just gonna keep going with it. Yeah. No, but it is something that, like, I know that a lot of people work in direct opposition to change. Like, you have to work really hard to not change. It's not actually harder to change. It's harder to not change, because you have to choose to consistently not allow the situations that life presents to you to springboard you forward. You have to be like, no, I'm going to resist this. I'm going to stay just the way I am.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do it. They put a lot of effort in, and energy and time, wasted effort, energy, and time into staying the same. But the beautiful thing is like, a lot of those people believe this is just the way it is, and it's not.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing, is as humans, we are so moldable, right? We're like clay, and we can mold into really cool things. And there's a process of how that goes. And there's something similar across the board for most people of what their experience is when they first start that process out. And I think that those are things that you want to highlight in today's conversation.
Yeah, I want to talk about the process of transformation, because you don't just go from the ashes to rising and being the super badass, powerful, victorious.
Yeah. Or from just a semi truck to a giant robot.
In the process of transformation, you're going to use Optimus Prime. Oh my gosh.
Anyways.
Yeah, the process of transformation is such a journey. And I think we kind of want to talk about what the process of transformation is like, because if you don't understand the stages of it, you can get lost, you can get disheartened, you can get confused, hopeless, and you can give up before you actually get to having the life that you want, or coming alive again, or finding yourself again, or reclaiming you again.
I see what you did there.
So I thought we'd talk about kind of just like what transformation is like, the journey of it, so that people can feel validated in what they're going through and not give up.
I want to say that when can I start off a little something? When the process of transformation kicks off, it's usually like a major hit of dopamine. Because you're like, oh my God. And you start having these epiphanies and these awakenings, and you feel like you've discovered a new religion or something 100%. Like that.
It's and like that.
And that you're like, everything in my life can be fixed, and it can all be perfect, and I'm going to change it all. And
I make sense for the first time. Oh, I've been doing this crazy thing my whole life because I didn't believe I was lovable as a kid, or this thing that bullied me. I've been living out of that for forever. And those moments where we have light bulbs.
Yeah, the ahas.
A huge dopamine hit. Yeah.
And you start feeling like this initial injection of hope.
Yeah.
Everything's going to change.
I can change everything. Yeah. And that gives you a lot of energy to jump into the emotional health transformation process.
And I think that, that's something that happens, like, say, in spiritual experiences and stuff like that, where initially people get into spiritual experiences and they're like, my life's going to be the best.
Yes.
And they're living completely high. And then we're going to talk about a lot of the things that you encounter along the way.
The normal parts.
But it is worth celebrating, because part of what's happening for people in that initial dopamine hit and the excitement is that they are suddenly realizing, like, life doesn't have to be the way it has been. And I don't have to be in aspects of the hell that I've been feeling for a long time.
Yes.
I can do something to be powerful and impact my life. And that feels so good, and reasonably so, that we're not just passengers in this life. We actually get to be powerful and proactive, and that can make a difference.
Yeah. I think a great thing to call it would be like an awakening. Whenever we awaken that there's more to life than what we've been living, there's more joy, or there's more hope, or there's more emotional health, or relationships could be better than what we've thought. Like catching vision to expand our experience on earth is such an important part, because once we have vision that life can be better, that we could be more alive, that we could be more connected to love, that we could drink water without spilling it on ourselves.
No one saw that. Ben wasn't going to cut to me. He had the camera on you. Now you've exposed me.
The more you see what life could be, the more you are motivated to pursue that.
Right.
And I think it's so important that we actually, because when we get that energy of, I want to grow forward, that empowers us. Because if we are not having vision for who we want to become, we will just become whatever life tosses at us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And usually that's not very pleasant.
Yeah.
When life happens to us and we're not engaging it, it usually opens the door to a lot of bitterness and resentment.
Powerlessness, feeling stuck, feeling
Dream,
trapped,
dreams
feeling small,
unfulfilled,
feeling bullied.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, as you're saying, you can go ahead and continue.
I thought you were saying something. Yeah. So
no, you jumped in and started taking my list.
No, I think that just the process of transformation starts euphoric, and that's really beautiful and really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. You often start with the need to fix yourself. And I think that is great initial inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
but actually not sustainable fuel. Because when we are trying to fix ourselves, the energy of that is saying, I'm not lovable as who I am now. I'm not worthy of love now. And so you actually are saying in your life to good things, not yet. Don't love me yet, because I need to be different before I'm worthy of love. I need to be different before things change. And you actually, there's a little bit of it's self-rejection. When you are trying to fix yourself with emotional health, it's saying, I'm not lovable and worthy now. And
and it's usually a performance-driven experience, right? It's saying it's a conversation about identity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, if I fix myself, then I can feel loved, then I can have worth and value. And so
Then
now I'm
belong.
trying to, instead of being like, my journey to transformation begins with me accepting that I have value and worth, and I'm engaging this process not to gain it, but I'm engaging from it.
Yeah.
So I am engaging the process of transformation from the position that I have value and I am worthy of the engagement of wholeness.
Yeah. So the mindset for healthy transformation would be, I want to open myself up to love the most. And I want to move the things in my life that are hindering love out.
Yeah.
Not, I want to fix myself so that then I'll be lovable. The true transformation starts with when we are allowing ourselves to let love in and meeting us where we're at right now. And again, that fix it energy will work really well for a little bit. It creates some really good motivation. I think about people who want to lose weight in the new year. And they hate how they look right now. So they're going to go work really hard. And self-hatred can fuel you for a while.
Sure can.
But there is a moment where the self-hatred stops being enough energy to keep pushing you towards your goal. And then you start to lose that motivation and that edge.
Yeah.
And then you oftentimes rebound out of that.
You find yourself neck deep in a piece of cake.
Neck deep.
Just pounding.
Yeah. Because
cake, eating ice cream, going into sugar comas because you're like, oh, I just give up. I don't even care.
Because self-hatred can't produce the loving results that you want for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's the first part in transformation.
It also can't produce the comfort you want, right?
Yeah.
And so if you hate yourself enough, you'll resort to old comfort tactics, right? Which are the things you're trying to get out of. But those things, those destructive things that we often do, those destructive tendencies that are based out of a lack of self-worth are actually usually, I'm trying to get comfort out of these things. So if I don't have a landing place of love that gives me comfort in the way that I choose to love myself, I'll return to that always.
You'll return to the unhealthy comfort.
Correct.
Yes. So if you're like, I'm trying to fix myself and not do codependent relationships. Well, if you are cutting yourself off from love, you're going to find yourself right back into that codependent relationship that you're trying to break out of. If you're trying to not eat as comfort, but you're not allowing yourself to be loved now, you'll find yourself right back to the food that is comfort. And that's just true in all transformation. When we do transformation out of self-hatred, it keeps us perpetuating the cycle. And then that feels really hopeless, like change isn't possible.
Because the self-hatred perpetuates pain, right?
Yeah.
And if you apply enough self-hatred to yourself, you eventually have an explosion of pain that's bigger than the alternative, which is my destructive cycles.
Yeah.
Hey, Connected Life peeps. 3 of the greatest gifts I think you can receive during the holidays is emotional health, sex, and money. Now, we can't give you sex, but we can give you emotional health and we can give you money. So right now, December 23rd, 2024 through January 1st, 2025, you can go to Justin and Abi, that's abi.com/reclaiming you, and you can sign up for Reclaiming You and save $100. That's right. You can save $100 at the checkout with the code Happy New Year's. Now, for those of you who don't know about Reclaiming You, that is a 14-week live program kicking off January 11th, 2025. And you're going to focus on healing the nervous system and building emotional resilience. And you can find out more about that on justinabi.com/reclaiming you. And again, at the checkout, you can use the code Happy New Year's and save $100. There you go. Emotional health and money. Now you have to go find yourself some sex. I'd be in so much trouble if Abby was here right now.
So I'm going to talk about my transformation process just a little bit. So it started with mine started because I got thrown into the deep. Sometimes life throws you into a transformation process where it was like, I have to transform or I'm going to die. Like the only way to survive this.
And to be fair, there's varying phases of transformation. Mm-hmm. So you've had different seasons that you've been thrown into, but the most recent season threw you into a new phase of transformation, right?
It was transform or die. Like there's no way that what I'm doing isn't working. I have to find a new pathway forward. And so for me, a lot of that was learning how to transform my nervous system, learning how to connect to safety, learning how my mind and my body are connected and how they interact together, and how to heal holistically with my brain, my body, and my spirit, all of those, not just a few parts. But what started is, so you start the process of transformation and you begin by learning, and it feels really hopeful. You're like, oh my gosh, my whole life makes sense. Oh, I've actually been dysregulated my whole life. I've been stuck in fight, flight, freeze, and fawn my entire life. My nervous system is completely jacked. I'm stuck in a state of hypervigilance and stress. My body's never getting to rest. And then I'm having huge emotional outbursts because my window of tolerance is so small. So the beginning hit is euphoric. I understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. It makes so much sense. The next stage is a little bit disheartening, which is, I think we all believe once we understand what's happening, we can just fix it magically.
Yeah.
Poof. Now it's done. But so I started to understand my nervous system. I understood why it had gotten that way, the trauma story I've been through, my childhood story, how my body was repeating my stress cycles through my whole life. But then it wasn't like that made the stress go away. It didn't make me being stuck in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn go away. It actually just meant that now I knew what was happening, but my life had not changed yet. And that discrepancy actually causes a good amount of pain. Like,
yes,
it can cause hope. It can also cause pain. You're like, there's hope that I can transform my life. But then after you're doing it for a few months and you haven't fixed everything yet, and there's still a discrepancy between what you know and what you're living out. So you're like, I know how to regulate, but I'm not regulated right now. And like, I know the right things to do in conflict. Like, it was one thing for us to learn, what does a healthy conflict look like? That was really important for us to see because we'd never seen it. Once we'd seen it and started agreeing on the concepts, though, that didn't mean that we magically always could do it.
Well, yeah.
I couldn't be like, oh, I shouldn't be defensive. Just don't be defensive. It was, I would get stuck in my defensiveness.
Yeah.
So then I would have the shame because before you're awakened, before you know better, you're just like, they're the worst. I did conflict great. Or like, I don't know why I'm so stressed. I'm not dysregulated. I'm just busy, you know? And then you start to have awareness, and the awareness bursts your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're like, oh, I have these truths that I know that I should be, but I'm not living them yet. Have you experienced that?
Oh, yeah. I think the inability to implement knowledge is tormenting for most people because, again, you perceive yourself as I'm a failure. I now know this information. I should be able to implement it. And that's a phase of the transformation that everyone walks through where they feel like I'm just failing at this. And they oftentimes hit a what's the point monster.
Totally.
Got all this information. I now know that clearly I'm fucked up because I have enough information to know that I am. And I'm doing everything that I should be doing, but it's not working. Or there's a bunch of things I should be doing that I'm not doing. And one of the things that you can help yourself with is beginning, as you go into the transformation process, choosing to go into it with the idea of you want to understand what grace looks like. So without grace, it will be a tormenting, performance-based process.
Yes.
But all transformation, like true transformation, isn't rooted in performance, like we said at the kind of talked about at the beginning of this. So you have to begin to rip performance out of it. Like you can get through this phase entirely different if you acknowledge like, oh, the reason I'm disheartened is because I am feeling a sense of performance inside of this situation. And right now, grace looks like something.
Yeah.
If I am engaging grace, the transformation process, it means that I have compassion for where I'm at inside of this. I have patience with myself, knowing that this doesn't happen overnight. This took me maybe 30 or 40 years to F myself up and make this big of a mess.
And create these patterns.
Yes. There's no way, it's impossible for me to unravel this in 1 year.
Yep.
Or the next 10 years. Like it could take the next 10 to 15 years as you begin a process to go, I'm recoding all of this stuff that I was coded into me from my childhood, from my adult choices. And so again, we can, as we look at the reality of that, we can lean into grace and be like, okay, today I'm learning a little bit more. Today I'm growing in a few new ways. There's more expressions of wholeness that are coming out of me today than were coming out a year ago. And that's where we begin to, we have to settle into adjusting our expectations.
Absolutely.
We create these unrealistic expectations in relationship with performance when it comes to the transformation process. And we have to begin to ask ourselves when we hit these bumps in the road, what are the unrealistic expectations I've created out of this journey?
Yeah, I think that's so good. You know, like one of the things I've learned is that our brains learn faster than our bodies do. So I logically can understand a concept before my nervous system knows how to implement it. So just changing the expectations that it's actually logical that I'm having the discrepancy has helped me.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, I've spent years patterning and building pathways in my mind, neural pathways, and then patterns in my nervous system. So I'm not going to instantly have all new patterns. And the grace that things take time to change is actually how you build new neural pathways. Every time, you know, I view it, changing your life, like pathways in the snow. I've taught this for a long time. If you imagine there being like 5 feet of snow, and there is one pathway that has been paved, like a snow plow went through that pathway and it's completely clean. There's no snow on it. That's the easiest pathway to walk down. Walking through 5 feet of snow, well, that might be impossible, maybe like 3 feet of snow.
Let's talk about digging our way through 5 feet of snow.
Yeah.
Because that's what it
feels
is.
Like so hard to do, nearly impossible. And so when we're trying to create a new pathway in our brain or in our nervous system, it's that we're no longer walking down the one that's been snowplowed, that pathway. We have to walk down the one that has no pathway there, that is just snow. And it is so much work to create a path in the snow. And then typically the next time your brain is at that same pathway, It wants to go right back down the one that is snow plowed because that's the easiest. It's the path of least resistance for your brain and nervous system. And so then you have to choose. No, I'm going to go right back. I'm going to create this new path. I'm going to keep stepping on this ground that is much harder. The snow is much higher. There's so much more resistance to do this. But the more you choose that new path, the more you walk on that, even though it's hard and it takes work, you start to create a path that is more like the snow smushed. The ground.
Snow's packed.
It's more packed. The snow is more packed. You start to create a pathway that then becomes comparable to the snow plowed path. And then it actually becomes the pathway of least resistance because your brain is used to going that direction. And so when I think about the pathway to transformation, you don't go from healthy to unhealthy. You go from healthy to a little bit, or you don't want to go from healthy to unhealthy.
Maybe you do. Maybe there's some goody two shoes out there that they're like, I got a perfect life. I should set it on fire. That's what I'm going to do. Get me off this good train.
Yeah. You don't go from unhealthy to healthy. You go from unhealthy to a little bit less unhealthy, to a little bit less unhealthy, to a little bit less unhealthy, to a little bit to neutral, to a little bit more healthy, to a little bit to healthy. Like it's like this process of slowly transforming.
Well, it's not, you're talking about the aspect of changing the way that we think and perceive and stuff like that. It's also this progressive journey of an awakening of the truth of who we are, right? Like our identity, like the more that I know that I'm loved, that's a progressive reality that slowly settles in. And as that reality settles into me, there's different ways that I respond to the life outside of me as I come into connection with that sense of love, that truth that I'm chosen, that truth that I'm not alone inside of this world. As fear begins to break away inside of me, there's something that evolves in the way that I approach the world. So there's a slow progression of a revealing of who we are, as much as there's the practical, scientific reality of like, I'm having to rewire the way that I think and do life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and the process of transformation is basically facing your fear over and over and over again. Facing your fear of who are you? Who are you going to be? Who have you been? Is it possible to change? Can you have the life that you want? That there's this pain process where, for me, so I had so many triggers, so much pain, so much aloneness. I was trapped in fear. To get out of fear meant I had to face my fears.
Yeah.
I couldn't get out of my fears by just avoiding them. And so the process of transformation costs you. Like
yes.
I talk about my journey of learning to love myself. The way that I learned to love myself is I had to face all the things inside of me
felt unlovable.
Felt unlovable. And then I had to let love in there. The process of letting love begin to transform you means over and over again, you're faced with the thing you think is unlovable, but then you invite love in there. Then you see this other area and you invite love in there. And so it's a scary process. And it's why a lot of people abandon the transformation process in the middle. And they're like, this doesn't work. I give up. It's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really real. One of the words that we were talking about, I wanted to chime in on this, is that transformation is really a process of wholeness. It's getting to the place of like, it's not like, it's not about trying to fix ourselves and make ourselves right. It's about getting to that place of like, I'm living whole. And in my wholeness, there's a lot of places where I'm still messy. I'm still imperfect. I don't have all the answers inside of it. But wholeness is like this embracement of love towards ourselves, the embracing of the life right in front of us that we're in. What is
that? Can you give what that's practically look like for you?
Well, yeah, I was going to continue with one other thing and say that it's also an embracing of humility. So it's this idea of like, when I'm living a whole life, I'm sitting here being like, okay, First off, I'm curious. I'm curious about how I function. I'm curious about how other people function. I realize that I don't have all the answers. As circumstances come to me, like embracing life is saying I'm not in resistance consistently to circumstances. I'm not in resistance to sufferings. I'm not in resistance to people challenging me. I am willing to engage each moment of every day of what's being brought to my doorstep in the relationships that I'm having, in the circumstances that seemingly hit my life out of nowhere. Instead of running from them, I'm stopping and I'm saying, I'm willing to face this. I'm willing to figure out what I need to learn from this. I want to figure out how I can extend myself, give myself away and serve this moment in front of me. And so it's a lifestyle of choosing to be present. It's also choosing to not run in fear. Like you were talking about, you had to face the fear inside of you. And so to me, that's another aspect of wholeness is I'm just choosing to face the fears that are happening inside of me and allowing myself to progressively work through them as I'm facing them.
So what does that look like in your, like we're trying to talk about the process of transformation, and you're saying to transform you need humility, or you're like, how has that practically looked in your life transformation process?
Yeah, like I said already.
Like, can you give some tangibles of like, this is a transformation journey I went on, and this is what I had to do that is connecting to the concept you're saying?
Yeah. So, for me, I always believed that I had all the answers. Part of the humility process was I don't have all the answers. So I was hard-headed when it came to the way that I related to people.
No.
If somebody tried to speak into something, I was like, I got this. I already understand this. And instead of being like, they're bringing something to the table, and it would probably be good for me to stop acting like I already know this and start engaging. Why are you bringing this to the table? Why are you sharing this information with me? Why are you challenging me in this way? And so I was pretty hard-headed. And part of my hard-headedness was if I don't have the answer, then there's something wrong with me. Then it means that I'm bad. I would feel this emotion of shame if I didn't have the right answer.
Yeah.
So I sat there and I started having to, in the process of humility, starting to acknowledge like, it's okay that I don't have this answer. This doesn't make me a bad person. Right now, this challenge coming to my doorstep is an invitation for me to learn or grow or for something to be revealed to me. So that's one aspect with humility.
Yeah.
Was letting go of my hard-headedness and trying to prove myself.
Yeah. And that became the invitation for transformation for you, is actually getting feedback from people.
Yeah.
And beginning to listen to that, which I love that. That's really beautiful. I'm thinking about another part of the transformation process, which is so you're growing and it feels euphoric in the beginning, and then you hit, discomfort. And if you continue to grow forward, you have humility. At some point, though, most people on a transformation process become experts.
Yeah.
This is one of the most common things that happen when people get into emotional health, or they start having an awakening, a spiritual awakening, or they start a new pathway that they're really excited about. It could be anything from, I have these new supplements that have changed my life.
It becomes an MLM journey.
I've had this. It could be anything from I have these new supplements in my life to I have this new awakening spiritual revelation to I'm learning all this stuff about my emotional health or my nervous system. And we become experts where we start to preach at everyone. And now we are looking at every single person like judging them. I now can diagnose everybody everybody else has the thing that I have. Everybody else is struggling with this thing. I can point out all of the flaws in you about this subject of however I'm transforming. You know, if it's like I'm transforming from my ADHD, then you like point out everyone else's ADHD problems. Or if you're like, I'm transforming my habits to keep a clean house. Now you're noticing everybody's habits that aren't keeping a clean house, and you just become an expert. And there's this real arrogant part that comes up. And this is a part of the transformation process.
Yeah.
Instead of denying it, we should just be honest.
Yep. There's a time where you will get arrogant.
And you will think you know it all.
And you will look down on others.
And you will judge them for doing the exact same thing you've been doing your whole life and probably are still doing, because transformation doesn't happen that fast. And the exact thing you just shared about humility is the key to bring us back out of that.
Yes.
For us to, something that when I start to feel that like, oh, I'm above them and I'm judging them for that thing, I instantly think, oh, I must have shame.
Yeah.
Where I need to prove, because shame that I'm still so unfixed, shame that I'm still such a mess, shame that I'm still so broken. So I need to prove that I am better than some people. It feels good. It makes you feel like you've grown. People on the transformation process look down at other people and judge other people because we're terrified that we're not growing. We're terrified that we're stuck. And so it's like, no, look at how far I've come. I'm so much better than Susie and Frank over there.
Oh, stupid Susie and Frank. Look at their dumb, smug faces.
Look at how messy their home is. I used to be just like that a month ago, but now look at, I'm clean, you know, like whatever the thing is that we are judging people for.
Look at them snorting their cocaine and smoking their crack over there. I don't do that anymore.
I only do Adderall.
I just wanted a ridiculous, like, one on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah. But the concept is that is something that often our ego is doing to try to help us feel like we are making progress.
Yeah.
To try to help us feel like we're growing. And one of the answers to that is to learn how to love ourselves in the process and to actually validate our own growth. We can validate our own growth without judging others. We created a course this year that I am so excited about. It's 8 years worth of my own personal healing process, plus all of the trauma, research, and understanding that I've had, and all of the healing that I've been able to walk others throughout this process. It's called Reclaiming You, and it will help you create a healthy relationship with your body, your nervous system, and emotions. It's going to help you find your resilience again so that you can face life with hope and joy and actually feel relaxed and feel good in your body and feel safe in your own skin again. And we want to invite you to join us for this experience this January.
Yeah. And also, for those of you who are just joining us, we've been in the emotional health field for 15 years now. We've had over 4,000 clients, and we've had over 10,000 people take our courses. And the cool thing is that in that whole process, we've actually had thousands of people tell us that taking our courses has radically transformed their lives, their relationships. And the reality is, it's not just because of the information, it's because of the community aspect. And that's what's so cool and unique about Reclaiming You. It's 14 weeks of live community experience that you're going to have when you join us for that. So we're excited about it. Come join us. You can go to justinabby.com/reclaimingyou. And October 28th is when that'll be available on our website. And then January 11th, 2025 is when the course kicks off. And it's going to be a cool way to start the year off. So come join us. I've found that I have progressively found myself when I notice myself judging others, perceiving judgment as a signpost for me to go look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I want to throw this out there. So as you're in the transformation journey and you start engaging judgment, let your awareness of that actually direct you to go, I need to go look at myself.
Mm-hmm.
What is it in me that I'm seeing that I need to forgive myself for, or I need to face inside of myself that I'm still running from inside of this?
How am I like them?
Mm-hmm.
How is the thing that I'm judging about them still something that is going on in me?
Because another aspect of the journey to wholeness is a release of judgment out of our life. So I know that I am progressively moving towards more and more wholeness, the less and less judgment that I have in my heart. Because what's happening is as I'm becoming whole, I'm becoming actually aware of my humanity, free from my relationship with shame, right? So I'm seeing, okay, I can see my messiness. I am no longer judging it. I see that I am messy like anyone else. We all share a common humanity. And once I embrace that, I am overtaken by compassion and I'm overtaken by empathy for other people because I don't see myself as better than, I see myself as human as them. And that I am equally capable of all the same messes and the destructive tendencies. And I've also done those things. And so that'll be a sign that you're maturing in your wholeness process, the less judgment that you hold in your heart.
Yeah. And what did that look like for you on your transformation process?
As far as
Well, how did you start reconciling? Because you were judgmental.
You were judgmental too, dick.
So like what?
Let's call a spade a spade.
So what is it that you, like, what did the process towards wholeness look like for you?
Well, in the aspect of judgment is that I had to acknowledge I have judgments. I am very judgmental in these areas. I had to acknowledge that my judgments were ways of me trying to make myself feel better, or my judgments were expressions of things inside of me that I had yet to forgive. And so I think it's one of the hardest things for us to do is acknowledge that we have a relationship with judgment, or acknowledge that judgment isn't okay.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking when you're talking, I think a lot of us think judgment will help us on our transformation process. Like if I judge all those people who are codependent, that'll help me get away from codependency. If I judge my body for not being lovable at the weight it is, then that will motivate me to go work out. Like we actually believe that judging other people, like, oh, I never want to do conflict like them. Oh, I never want to talk to my kids like them. We believe that judgment can then help us be better versions of ourselves. And I do think it's good to say, have standards. Like I want to have a standard of speaking with kindness. I want to have a standard of speaking soft. And we can definitely be in situations to be like, I don't like how this is happening. I don't like what's going on around me, without necessarily judging that we're good or bad based on how we're around them.
Well, judgment, and this is a thing that people oftentimes get caught up on, is because like, I think it's hard to define what judgment is oftentimes. And I think that to me, the judgment that I'm talking about is an assessment of someone's worth or value or identity, right? Yeah. And
are you good or bad?
Yeah. Are you good or bad? Are you a piece of shit or are you a hero?
Yeah.
And we can oftentimes, when we look at other people's destructive decisions, it's healthy to be able to acknowledge that is a destructive behavior. That causes chaos. That causes pain.
Yeah.
That's totally different from looking at someone being like, look at that guy and all of his stupid decisions that he makes.
He's so broken.
And there's this disdain for them, and you're looking at them as if they have less value and as if they're just a total fool.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, oh, compassionately. Like, to me, I can look at someone compassionately, say, that thing is really hurting them. And in my heart, have a sense of, oh, I don't want that for them.
Yeah.
They are a valuable child of God that's worthy of a life that's much different than what they're experiencing.
Yeah. That's good. I'm going to move to the next phase. One of the phases is where you don't know who you are and what you want or who you'll be anymore. Like when you're transforming, you've got to think like you're no longer who you were, but you're not yet who you're going to be. And so there's a real feeling of I'm in the middle. And you're like, I don't really fit in relationships the way that I used to. I don't fit in circumstances the way that I used to. But it's like the butterfly when you're a caterpillar, you become a butterfly, you're mush in the cocoon. And a lot of the transformation process feels like that. I'm no longer a caterpillar, but I'm not yet a butterfly. I'm just mush. And all of a sudden you're like, I don't even know what I'm going to want. I don't know what dreams I'm going to have. And a lot of people on the transformation process do lose sight of like, what career will I want to be? What will I want out of my relationships? Because when you're in the process of becoming, but you're not who you were and you're not yet who you'll be.
Who am I and what am I even doing with my life?
Yes. It ends up feeling so confusing. And a lot of us are trying to create safety by being like, this is what I'm going to do in the future, or this is who I'll be. And in transformation, you often have to let go of knowing how the process is going to end, of knowing what you're going to look like on the other side, of knowing how relationships will work on the other side.
Yeah. And that what you're talking about is a part of the transformation process that is a radical trust fall.
Yeah.
Right. Like that, a radical trust fall is required for transformation because we have to let go of what we thought we knew. We have to let go of the control of trying to figure out, these answers to what you're talking about here. And you just go, I just know that I'm moving through this, that I have a surrendered heart that's humbled itself to this. And it's going to be okay if I don't know who I am or where my life is going right now. I'm just saying yes to this moment.
Yeah.
And that was something that I did inside of my life. I remember when we first got married, there was especially a surrender for me on my end where I said, I just got to believe this is unto something more. Like, I don't know what that more is, but I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I remember it being really scary. That's where some of my greatest fears came up. It's in that space because I was no longer able to, foster a sense of self-worth through the work that I was doing because I'd quit my job and I wasn't directly pursuing something that I thought was going to like fulfill my life. I was just being. And that's something I talked about earlier when I talked about being present with the life right in front of you. You have to begin to go into a trust fall where you're like, I'm just going to be present with this. I don't have all the answers.
Yeah, I think that we can get really spinny when we're in the process of transformation. We want to know, who am I going to be at the end of this? What is life going to look like? Where am I going to want to go? When we are trying to answer those questions, I call them unanswerable questions.
Right.
While you're a mush in the cocoon, you can't answer what color of wings you're going to have. You can't answer what flight pattern you're going to go on. Like you actually just need to be mush. And so when we try to answer the questions of where are we going, how is this headed, how will this end? And I think about this a lot in relationships. So a lot of times, like romantic relationships, they'll go through something and one partner will start to really transform and they'll be like, is this relationship going to make it or not? And we will just obsess over that question. Will it make it or not? Will it make it or not? Instead of actually being like, I'm going to keep transforming and we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see if they transform with me. We'll see if we create a new relationship together or if this relationship ends up not working anymore once the transformation happens. I think there's such a piece is what you're talking about. If you will let go of needing the answers while you're in the cocoon, let go of needing to know what things are going to look like and what things are going to be, because those questions are not answerable while you're changing.
I think that there was, you talked about this latest phase of transformation that you're going through, and I was equally in my own process. And I think that there wasn't a guarantee that you and I were going to stay married.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that it was fully a conversation we were having on the table, but it was like, man, there's something being worked out in each of us. And I don't know who we're going to be on the other side of this. And I don't know if it's going to be that we're even going to be compatible inside of this, but we have to face ourselves. And there was that sense of a trust fall of like, we don't know what this looks like on the other side, but we know that we have to keep saying yes to this thing right here and now.
Yeah. And I think that is a very true thing about transformation is relationships change. They have to. When you change, relationships change.
There'll be things that just aren't compatible any longer.
And it's difficult because you don't know what relationships are going to stick with me as I transform and become more of who I'm made to be, and what relationships aren't going to fit anymore. And I know for me, there are relationships that don't fit anymore. The healthier I get, I'm like, oh, actually, our dysfunctional pattern is not fun for me now that I am not as crazy. Like now that I don't have this dysfunctional thing I want to do anymore, then a lot of our connection is gone with some people. And in other relationships like ours, I think our transformation process actually created a much more beautiful relationship. Yeah. But neither of us knew how it was going to go when we were in it. Like I didn't know if you were going to transform into something that would be safe enough for me to be with. And I think you didn't know if I was going to transform into someone that would be safe enough for you to be with. And so you have to kind of commit. And this is why transformation is so scary, because things are going to change. Mm-hmm. If you change, things will change. If you change, your relationships will change. The healthier you get, that is going to cause a stir in your relationships.
Major stir.
It's going to create waves in your friendships. And some friendships are not going to be able to go with you where you're going when you are getting healthy. And some romantic relationships are not going to be able to go with you. Yeah. And that's actually the goal, that you become safe and powerful and loving enough that somebody else decides they don't want to stay with that. If they don't want to, they either get to come towards love with you, or they decide that doesn't feel good anymore. And I think that that's a beautiful, it's painful. Yeah. To grow and grieve. Like to grow and lose some relationships, that's painful. That's sad. No one told me in the beginning of my life, if you are transforming and learning and growing, that will cause pain in your relationships. Because a lot of people don't want to transform and grow. Yeah. But it's true.
Yeah. I've seen quite a few people go through my office and they chose to do the work, and it led to them not being compatible in many aspects. Certain
relationships anymore.
Yeah. And I watched them have to be like, not eject themselves out of it, just be like, I'm just being me, and it's not working for them anymore. Mm-hmm. And I watched multiple divorces happen where people like literally were like, I'm being healthy, and this person, like I'm living in wholeness, and they are fighting it constantly because they don't want to engage the work that it takes. They don't want to face themselves inside of it. And oftentimes it was the opposite partner that would even eject themselves out of it because they just didn't want to have to face themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's an important thing, and something to bring yourself comfort is that anytime you transform, you will end up finding people. In every stage, I found people
new tribe
on the journey that did want to grow. Yeah. And did want to continue to transform. And I think that's beautiful. And I also have, to me, I have so much love and compassion for relationships that didn't work.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay if people aren't on the same growth curve as me. It doesn't even mean they don't want to grow. It might just mean that the timing in our seasons is different.
Yeah.
You know, that's happened with me and Pizzi before. She's my best friend, and we've had different growth spurts of transformation where like, oh, we weren't as compatible in that season. And that doesn't even mean, it doesn't mean I'm good and she's bad. And it doesn't mean that someone else is good and I'm bad. It can just mean that the pace that we can change may not be the same pace that somebody else can transform.
Yeah.
So I think
so
that's
good.
One thing, another stage that happens in transformation is when you just feel like nothing is changing.
Yes.
Where you just feel like I'm the same person. I'm doing all of this work and nothing's happening. You just see yourself because transformation isn't instant, and our body and our patterns, our neural pathways and our nervous system patterns don't instantly change. And so you can find yourself, I'm changing my boundaries and I'm learning how to regulate and I'm doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you find yourself doing all the old behaviors, all the old patterns. And you just feel like, I'm never going to get out of this. I'm never going to make it to the other side. I'm never going to be safe in a conflict with Justin because I'm going to get dysregulated and I'm going to go into self-protection. I'm never going to, overcome my ADHD distractions. I'm never going to learn how to create new habits. Like, we get stuck in this place where it just feels like the breakthrough I'm wanting will never happen.
Yeah.
And one of the things that has helped me, again, is coming back to healthy expectations of transformation. The process is a process. And every time I've changed, it's been like, I almost see it like a graph. Like, let's say we're talking about being in my adult self versus my kid self. So as I've gone on the emotional health journey, I've realized my little kid shows up a lot. And places where I got stunted, there's little parts of me that need to have a voice about something so that I can reparent that part of that little girl and then come back to my adult self. So transformation didn't look like, oh, I recognize I have a little girl and now I'm just in my adult self more and I look at my little girl and love her. No, the transformation happened with my little girl would show up. I would get lost in there. And then I'd have to find my way back to being an adult. And then my little girl would show up and I'd have to find my way. And it went from like, my little girl was driving 80% of my life, and then maybe like 75% of my life, and then maybe 70%, and then maybe 60%. Meanwhile, my adult self is now driving 40% of my life. Now it's driving 45%. Now it's driving 47%. Now I'm in my adult self 50% of the time, and the way that transformation happened was over years. I now feel like I'm in my adult self much more than my little kid self. When we got married, I was in my little kid self a lot.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just, I learned about it. And within 1 year, I was different.
Or look like to be in your kid self a lot?
Yeah. When I was in my little kid self, it would be like my little kid emotions where I felt completely powerless, overwhelmed, like I couldn't handle anything, like I didn't know what to do. It would be like feeling like you're like a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old. It's like a feeling of a part of you that is stuck in time.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't recognize it in the beginning. And then I went through the transformation process of recognizing, I have a little kid self. It makes sense that she showed up because she had a lot of trauma while she was growing up. And when she shows up, she just needs attention. So the euphoric of understanding that, and then the pain of like, I understand she's there, but she's still there. And I want her to be gone now. And I just want to be a powerful, capable adult that knows how to regulate my feelings. My little kid would show up. That's whenever I'd have huge emotional outbursts or huge emotions would be like, there's my little kid.
Yeah.
And so my goal in this is talking about that process of transformation is that you're going from one behavior to another. And it's just that you're slowly changing the percentages until you find yourself. And because it's such a slow process, it could be like, I'm back in my little kid. I'm back feeling these huge, big emotions. And you could be like, I'm not changing at all. Or you could see, I actually recognized what was happening 1% faster than I used to. I actually noticed what was going on. I actually got out 1 day faster than I used to. Like, that's how I transformed from self-hatred spirals. I would have self-hatred for like a week at a time. I would literally be OCD looping over how much I hated myself and anxiety and what I did wrong and everything I needed to change after something would happen. And the way that I transformed was eventually it was like 6.5 days and I could get out. And then it was like 6 days of self-hatred and I could get out. And then it was like 5 days of self-hatred. And then eventually it got to where now I can normally work my way out within a few hours.
Yeah.
And that's dramatic for me. But if I had the expectation that I should go from it lasting 7 days to 0 days, then I would have felt like a failure for years.
Yeah. Well, I think to wrap this episode up, something that I want to say is we need to remember that wholeness is not a destination, but it's a lifelong journey, right? And it's that part of us that is like, I'm just willing to engage this thing. Going back to the word humility, it's that humble heart that says like, hey, I want something to be produced out of this. You know, there's ultimately a goal in this. I do want to come alive in this, but that is something that's going to be the fullness of my life as I'm being exposed to love and new truths. And so there's just this settling in and being like, I am here, I'm with this, and I'm open to whatever this journey brings to my doorstep. I'll fully engage it as that lesson comes to me. So to me, like a lot of times we create a lot of high stakes around the process of wholeness, and it doesn't actually have to be high stakes when you're just like, hey, I'm just here, I'm settled in, and I'll face what I need to face as it comes up and engage it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're listening and you are on the journey of transformation, or you want to go on it, or you're tired and you're weary of it and you want to just bury your head. We forgot that stage. There's a stage where you're just like, I wish I didn't know any of this. I wish I could go back and bury my head in the sand and pretend that I didn't understand anything of what was going on. I wish I could just be messy without understanding anymore. I wish I could just quit. That's a phase we didn't mention, but wherever you're at on the journey this year, we'd love to partner with you for the first 4 months of the year to help your process of transformation. In all of our courses, they are built on giving yourself time and compassion to love yourself while you're still unfixed, while you're still a mess, to actually let love in and learn how to trust the process, learn how to find your inner voice that is leading you forward, but without shame and without anger, and to be kind to yourself. And so I'd love to have you join us with Reclaiming You. You're going to learn how to change your life. It's literally understanding your brain, your nervous system, your emotions, and how to create a healthy relationship with your body and your nervous system. Your nervous system and your emotions. And it's going to be really transformative. And the most transforming part is being in a community where you're with like-minded people. I can't tell you how many people have found their best friends in our courses, have found their tribe, have found their spouse in our courses, because like we said, if you can find people who are on the same journey as you, it feels so validating and relieving and beautiful and healing to get to understand each other so well.
Really does. So if you want to check that out, go to Justin and Abi, that's abi.com/reclaiming-you, and you can get in on that. If you haven't done it yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube and the bell, and share the episodes with people.
Yeah, that's the nicest thing. We try we do a lot of this for free. We try to help people as much as we can.
Just share it.
And then the best way you can show your appreciation is sharing. Sharing is caring, and subscribing.
All right. Like Optimus Prime, I'm going to transform and roll out. Dumb.
I loved it.
Bye.
I think that should be your new sign off.
Transform and roll out.
Roll out.